The garden tells you everything about a person. Not the garden they show their neighbors, but the one they tend when no spotlight follows their hands. What grows there reveals who they are when applause becomes impossible. Cato the Younger understood this truth in ways that shaped the Roman Republic. While others performed virtue for political theater, Cato cultivated principles in the shadows of his daily choices.
He walked barefoot through winter, not for admiration, but because comfort had become his enemy.
He refused bribes, not because witnesses demanded integrity, but because his character demanded consistency. The courage that defined him bloomed in moments when recognition was forbidden.
This is the courage no one claps for. The discipline that operates without an audience. The strength that grows strongest when validation becomes unavailable. Modern life offers endless opportunities to practice this invisible courage. Yet most people wait for a stage before they decide to become brave. The Stoics knew that witnessed courage is often borrowed courage. True courage belongs to you when you choose difficulty over convenience in private moments. When you resist the shortcut that compromises your values. When you speak truth, knowing it will cost you comfort. When you maintain your standards while others abandon theirs for temporary advantage. Consider the executive who refuses to manipulate quarterly reports when shareholders demand impossible numbers. No news story will celebrate this choice. No promotion will reward this restraint. Yet this moment defines their character more than any public achievement ever could. They tend their garden in darkness, cultivating the kind of integrity that cannot be purchased or performed. The first teaching of unwitnessed courage centers on the discipline of private standards. Your true character emerges not in moments of public testing, but in the accumulated weight of choices made when consequences feel distant. The student who refuses to cheat on an exam with no supervision practices the same courage as Cato refusing Caesar's bribes. Scale changes nothing about the principle. Seneca wrote letters to Lucilius not for publication, but for the cultivation of wisdom in ordinary moments. He understood that philosophy becomes real only when it guides decisions that bring no immediate reward. The Stoic develops strength by consistently choosing the harder path when easier options multiply around them. This discipline requires what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, imagining difficulty before it arrives. You prepare your character for testing by practicing integrity when the stakes feel manageable. The muscle memory of right action develops through repetition in private before public pressure demands its expression.
The second principle involves the courage to disappoint others when your principles demand it. This may be the most difficult form of unwitnessed bravery, because social pressure creates its own audience inside your mind. You imagine the disappointment, the anger, the consequences of standing firm when others expect you to bend. Marcus Aurelius faced this challenge daily as emperor. Every decision disappointed someone. Every policy change created enemies. Yet he cultivated the capacity to choose what his principles demanded, rather than what his popularity required. He understood that true leadership serves virtue before it serves approval. In contemporary life, this courage appears when you decline invitations that compromise your values, conversations that diminish others. When you hold boundaries that protect your integrity, even when others call you difficult. The courage to disappoint lives in the space between who others want you to be and who your character demands you become.
The third teaching addresses the strength required to begin again after private failures.
This courage receives no recognition, because failure itself remains hidden. You know you compromised your values. You know you chose convenience over character. The world continues unchanged, but your garden has been damaged by your own choices. Epictetus, who understood suffering in ways that shaped his philosophy, taught that the courage to return to principle after failure defines progress more than perfection. The slave who became a teacher knew that freedom lives in the decision to begin again, regardless of how many times you have failed privately. This means returning to your meditation practice after months of neglect. This means choosing honesty after periods of convenient deception. This means rebuilding trust with yourself when no one else knows it was broken. The courage to begin again
operates entirely within the landscape of your own commitment to growth. The fourth principle explores the discipline of delayed recognition. True courage often requires you to plant seeds that others will harvest, to make sacrifices that benefit people who will never know your contribution, to choose actions that serve principles rather than personal advancement.
Cato spent years opposing corruption in the Roman Senate, knowing his efforts would likely fail. He spoke against popular policies that violated constitutional principles, even when his position guaranteed political isolation.
The courage he demonstrated served the Republic rather than his career, guided by values that transcended his immediate circumstances. Modern applications of this principle appear when parents sacrifice opportunities for their children's stability, when employees refuse to cut corners that would compromise quality, even when no one would discover their diligence, when citizens vote their conscience rather than their convenience. This courage trusts that right action creates value, even when rewards remain invisible. The fifth and deepest teaching concerns the cultivation of courage as an internal practice, rather than an external performance. The Stoics understood that courage, like wisdom, develops through daily attention to small choices, rather than dramatic gestures in crisis moments. This means choosing to exercise when motivation disappears, choosing to study when entertainment beckons, choosing to engage difficult conversations rather than avoiding temporary discomfort. The garden of character grows through consistent tending rather than seasonal displays of dramatic effort. The person who practices this invisible courage discovers something remarkable. External validation becomes unnecessary because internal alignment provides deeper satisfaction. They develop what the Stoics called ataraxia, a calm strength that remains steady regardless of circumstances or recognition. Your garden grows in silence. What you cultivate there when no one watches shapes everything about who you become when everyone is watching. The courage no one claps for prepares you for the moments when courage becomes public. But more importantly, it builds the kind of character that needs no audience to maintain its integrity. Cato died by his own hand rather than submit to Caesar's mercy, choosing death over the compromise of his principles. Remembers this final act, but his true courage lived in decades of smaller choices that prepared him for that ultimate moment. The garden he tended in private produced the strength that defined his public legacy. If this moved you, comment "The Citadel holds" below. It is our sign that you carry the philosophy with you. Subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.